The high holidays are called Yamim Naraim, which would translate as days of awe. So if you really understand what the idea of awe means, what is to be in awe, and I'm standing in awe, then from 40 days already before Rosh Hashanah, you have a strong sense of I'm encountering something that's very, very big, something much larger than me. And awe is that moment when I stop being self and I'm entering into something that's larger. Let's say, even for a simple example, I'm in awe of a painting. So the moment I'm in awe of that painting, before I understand why I'm in awe, the first moment I'm in awe, I'm completely lost in that painting. So the idea of Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur is to get lost in something that's much larger than us. But before you get lost into something that's much larger than you want to make sure that you're present. Who am I? So the entire month of Elul is dedicated to serious soul searching, to finding out who am I as a human being, who am I as a person, who am I as a Jew, in order that I can encounter something that's much larger than me. I don't want to lose myself before I know who I am. So first I have to know who I am, then I can stand in awe of those days. And there's a few practices that were done throughout history for many, many years. One is the blowing of the shofar. This is a very simple example. What you do is you basically take a horn and you give it a blow, a sound of the shofar. The idea of the sound of the shofar is to create focus. You know, sometimes people are talking in a room and then one person gives a scream, or you hear a siren, and all of a sudden everyone's attention is focused to that siren, or everyone's attention is focused to that person. You give a clap, right? And then everyone's focused attention to the clap. The sound of the shofar is that one sound that creates focused energy. I'm scattered all over the place. I have a lot of noise in my life. I do this, I do that. I want to have one moment that I say, ow. When you say ow, that one moment when you give a cry, you're completely present in that cry. A moment later, you start asking yourself, why am I crying? What hurt me? You know, and try to analyze it. But the first moment that you're in pain, that moment in pain, you're completely present in that pain. The Elul moment is that moment I want to get into that pain. I want to get into that one moment that I'm fully present in myself. I'm not here, I'm not there, I'm not somewhere else. I'm right now in my place that I have to be. Who am I? Right now, right here. That's the idea of the sound of the shofar. Of course, the idea being that the sound evokes that presence, that I'm completely present in that ow. And it's not a bad idea to actually literally shout, ow. You just soul searching, you look into yourself, see what you have done, what you haven't done, what are the places that you have to perfect, what are the areas that you have to grow on, what are the areas that you are perfecting, and then feel that fully, being present fully in that experience. That's the shout of the owl. That's the sound of the shofar. And to do that, in order to really be present in that moment, so you could be present at the time of Rosh Hashanah, of the high holidays, it would be a good idea also to practice something that's been done for many, many years, which is tainus dibur, a practice where you refrain from talking. Speech is a beautiful tool and has a lot of tremendous value, but sometimes we get lost in sound. We avert issues, we discard issues by just talking about it. Someone asks you how you're doing and you start rambling about all different topics, but you're not answering the question. Speech is a great way to ignore serious issues in your own life. You fill your life with noise. If you walk into a room, into your own home, or you're driving in your car, right? You're sitting down in your car and you're about to get onto the highway, and it's deathly quiet. You feel completely uncomfortable because the only thing that you're encountering now is yourself. You don't want to encounter yourself. So right away you do distraction, you put on noise. People walk into the house, they turn on the radio. The time of Elul is a time to practice moments of silence. Moments of silence, this can be for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, as many hours as you want, but just to be comfortable in your silence, without having to express yourself, without having to fill that place with noise, to create silence in your life. I suggest a few hours a day before you go to sleep, there's a certain blessing you say, and then be quiet at the end of the night. It's going to be uncomfortable at first because you're not going to know who you are. Most people get their sense of identity from the noise, from the stimuli that's outside of themselves. And the idea of Elul is to Disregard all the noise, disregard all the external stimuli, try to find out who you are as a human being. Who you are without all the noise, without all the trappings, in those moments of silence. So we have two opposite things that we're going to do in Elul. On one hand, we're going to create a noise, but a very primitive noise, which is the sound of the shofar, the sound of the blowing of a horn, which is not verbal, it's not language, but it's just a focused sound of a cry, of a wailing. That will focus our energy. And the context through which that sound comes from is from the context of silence. By being quiet within ourselves and observing yourself, and then you become focused into that one place. If we can enter into the high holidays prepared, then we can have a very truly deep transformational experience. Otherwise, Rosh Hashanah is basically going to shul, going to synagogue, sitting a few minutes, talking to your friends, having a nice dinner and going home, and it means nothing. It's just another event. If you really want the high holidays to be transformational, that when you leave Rosh Hashanah, you really feel judged inwardly who you are, and you judge yourself, and that you understand that you're being judged. If you really want to feel forgiven on Yom Kippur, you have to go through the experience and involve yourself in the experience. It's not a gift. It's not something that's given to us. It's something that we have to work on. When we enter into that place of Rosh Hashanah, we have to be completely prepared for the experience. If we're prepared for the experience, then we can integrate the experience and assimilate the experience in a very deep way and truly experience Simchat Torah, which is the final celebration of the Tishrei holidays, the true celebration of joy. Because if we could truly go through all the experience of the encounter of self, in that silence creating that sound, in this idea of judging and finding out who we are, and stripping ourselves of all negativity and being pure, and that Yom Kippur naked moment, and being fully embraced by the walls of the sukkah, which represents the letters of the Yud Kei Vav Kei, the embrace of the Shekhinah's presence, fully feel ourselves unified with the divine presence. Then, when the holidays end, we can finish with a very joyous note of joy. It says in the other Hasidic text that how do you know if your Yom Kippur was successful? How do you know if you spend the whole day Yom Kippur and you fasted and you wore white and you did all the customs and the practices? How do you know when Yom Kippur is over if you were forgiven? How do you know if it worked? And the answer is that if the moment Yom Kippur is over you feel a tremendous amount of joy, then you know Yom Kippur was successful. But if you still feel connected to the food, or when Yom Kippur ends, and there's a breakfast and there's a smorgasbord of food, and you're dashing to get the food and you give a jab to the person next to you so you can pick up that drink, you might as well go back 24 hours and start Yom Kippur all over again. But if you can experience right at the end of Yom Kippur the true relief, the true joy, then you know Yom Kippur is successful. If you can experience by the end of Tishrei, Simchas Torah, the giving of the Torah, the joy of the Torah, in an eternal way, in a joyful way, not something that has to be given to you, but something that's self-generating. You can feel that internally, then you know that you've gone through the holidays and it's been meaningful and transformational.